And just before I start sharing that, I'm just going to make sure I've got nothing else open. Slow it down. Okay. Right, well, no one else is joining at the moment. So we've got 7 of us here. That's all cool. So let me share my screen again. Let me know how you're feeling in the comments, ladies. I've loved reading your questions, by the way, and all the things you're looking forward to learning. Right, let's just get this up. Okay, so we're going to make a start. If anyone else jumps in, I'll just add them in as and when. But first of all, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for being here and taking this time for yourself, because you absolutely 1,000,000% deserve it. And I really, really hope that by the end of the session, you go away with some tools that you can use. If anybody's got any questions or anything they want to ask me, you can always email me even after the session's finished. If there's something you don't want to ask on here, so please feel free to do that. But we're just going to jump straight into it. We will be finishing on a breathwork session, and I think that you'll all, I know some of you have experienced that before, some of you are new maybe to it. I think you're all going to really enjoy it. Set your Sunday off to a really good start. So this kind of masterclass is for people in all different situations that are just not feeling as secure as they'd like to be. So like when, for me, I used to be like, if somebody hadn't text back within a couple of hours, in my head, they're not interested anymore. In business, I'd be undercharging and constantly trying to overgive. I mean, I still love to overgive. Like I love people to get results that I'm, talking about, but also it needs to be a mutual benefit. I need to value myself as well, which is definitely something I've learned to do. And we're going to be getting some of the starters kit to become the secure woman that you want to be. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about my story, my history. So for me, it's always been a lot to do with relationships and business, just not valuing myself. So I had my first serious relationship when I was 16. And when that ended, which was in quite a horrific way, I mean, he literally phoned me one day and said he was on the way to pick up his girlfriend, which obviously was a massive shock after 9 months of being together. But I actually, and trigger warning, I actually tried to take an overdose because I had outsourced my worth, my love so much to somebody else that without that, I didn't feel like life was worth living. So at that point, I didn't know how to value myself. I didn't know how to feel whole or worthy without somebody else giving me these things. At that point, I could never be single. So I would literally go from relationship to relationship, or even situationships where I would absolutely accept bare minimum. So if it was just one thing they wanted, that was fine by me at that point, which again is not something that I would do now, is not valuing myself. And then at 17 years old, I actually met the dad of my 2 boys. And that was a 17-year relationship, but it wasn't a healthy relationship. And at the time, I didn't know that. And my kids were seeing me in this unhealthy relationship, which I didn't really realize. And I did start to, at the end of that relationship, focus on myself and my worth. And I actually, even now, I can't blame him for the way that he treated me, because to be honest, I didn't believe that I deserved any better. And even once we'd separated, after I'd been single for about a year, I got into another relationship, which I then sabotaged because I still didn't feel worthy. I'd done this glow up. I'd started, doing my hair, going to the gym, doing my nails. I'd felt better about myself physically, but I hadn't done anything internally to change that inner dialogue. I could act confident, but actually being confident, living confidently, feeling those things weren't happening. So that's just a little bit about me. And I'm guessing that you're here because you know actually how powerful you can feel. You're done dimming, proving, done outsourcing your worth. And like I say, mine has mainly been in relationships, but also in business. So right at the beginning of my journey, I would literally, if somebody couldn't afford to pay me, I would work with them for free because there was so much need to get validation from external sources rather than actually understand that all of that came from within me. So, what is today about? Well, it's going to be 60 minutes ish. We might go over slightly or under slightly, depending on how many questions people ask, where the conversations go. But we're going to talk about what makes us feel insecure in love and in life. So, even, this would play its part even in friendships and things when I was completely outsourcing my worth. And I've put, spoiler alert, it's not your personality, but it is your nervous system, your subconscious, the things that you have learned about yourself growing up. And we're going to go through this process so that you can learn how to change that. So these are just some of the things that I have found since rewiring the way that my subconscious works and regulating my nervous system. So actually I've got so much more clarity now. So I set standards rather than boundaries. I mean I do set boundaries as well, but I actually, there's a massive difference as far as I'm aware. Kind of, you can set boundaries, but sometimes that's holding out even the good stuff, whereas when we set standards, actually people have to meet us where we are. I'm feeling really, really worthy. So I know I'm a fucking catch. So rather than wondering, like, does this person like me? Do I like them? Like, are they good enough to be with me? Not, am I good enough to be with them? And obviously, this isn't a I'm better than anyone else type of thing. This isn't the type of thing we go around saying, I would never say to somebody, well, actually, I'm so much better than you. That's an ego thing. This is an internal, like, just knowing that we are whole, we're enough as we are. I'm taking more action in my business. So again, for a long time, I'd work with coaches and things that would say, oh, do this, do this, do this. And actually, a lot of the time, I'd know those things, but I had no capacity to actually take any action. So doing this work has given me the capacity back to be able to do what needs to do. My neck doesn't hurt as much. So you probably all know when you're feeling kind of stressed, there's a lot going on, you really like just tense up, you feel it all in your neck. I mean, actually, I say that my neck is really hurting at the moment because I went on a rib blast ride while I was away in West Bay last week, and it was crazy rough. And then on top of that, last night I went to see Jules in 4DX last night in Newport. We were literally being thrown around the cinema as well as being splashed with water and stuff. So actually my neck is hurting today, but that is kind of because of the things I've been doing. But my neck used to hurt all the time, like literally just tension from being so kind of stressed and tense. I'm much less triggered. So actually, I remember years ago, people would say to me, oh, you're so oversensitive, which, looking back, I really was. I would sometimes cry daily. And I was triggered by the smallest little things. And, this is something that I do when I work with customers. I talk a lot about being triggered because actually we tend to see being triggered as being a bad thing, but it's really not. It's literally showing us what's going on within us. And I always say nothing is actually triggering us. It's just showing us what's going on within. So it's a bit like, if I had a big cut on my arm, then if somebody prodded it or, poked it, my wound's going to hurt. And actually that's what triggers are. They're always there. It's just other people, other things outside of us will sometimes push those wounds. So what we do is we actually, we go to the root problem. We look at what the actual wound is, the trigger is, and we heal that, and then we're not so triggered. I'm not worried about what people think of me. So even today, I'm really, really tired actually because I've been on holiday all week and I decided that today would be a great day to run a masterclass. We didn't get back from the cinema last night till nearly midnight. And then because it was quite an active film, I couldn't get to sleep till maybe 1 a.m. And I'm really tired. And I think had this have been 5 years ago, I'd have been like, oh my God, people are probably going to be like, what is she on about? Because I'm not my usual self, maybe. But actually, I don't care. Like, this is me, and I want people to like me as I am. Either you like me or you don't like me. It's not a case of me trying to convince anyone that they like me. So I feel so much better in myself in general. Um, I don't question myself as much. So, like I say, in business and in relationships, I'm not procrastinating as much. I'm laughing a lot more and having fun with my kids. Like, this for me is probably the best thing that I've got out of all of the work that I've done on myself. Just being a better mum to my kids, being able to laugh at the really, really silly things. I mean, me and my kids now, we're so silly. We jump out on each other. And actually, because we have mirror neurons and we're constantly bouncing off of each other and mirroring each other's nervous systems, when I became much more regulated and calmer, that had a knock-on effect with my kids. So I saw a huge change in them too when I did this work. Like I say, I'm sticking to boundaries, creating standards, and communicating my needs better. This was something that I really didn't used to be able to do. So, again, just in my case, it was relationships and business. So I could never say, you know, if even if I wanted something from a relationship, I would really, really struggle to communicate that, because I had learned that communicating my needs wasn't really safe to do and that it wasn't going to be listened to. So that's what I learned to do in relationships, is to just be quiet. And actually, when I was with the father of my boys, I physically felt choked. Like, by the time we separated, I physically felt as though I was being strangled, because I wasn't communicating any of the things I wanted to communicate. And that physically manifested itself in the fact that I felt like I was choked all the time. Um, so yeah, being able to speak and communicate my needs, my boundaries, and again in business. So I had a customer a little while ago who, honestly, the loveliest customer, but she was messaging me on a daily basis. Pretty much the package she bought from me included WhatsApp support, but she was sometimes voice noting me like a 10-minute voice note a day. And again, if this had been 5 6 years ago, I probably would have just continued to listen to those voice notes and carry on with it. But actually, I was able to communicate and say, look, I know we've got this together, but this is what we're going to start doing moving forwards, because I can't be listening to 10-20 minutes of voice notes every single day. And actually, that was a massive benefit to her as well, because sometimes when we put boundaries in place, it's not even just us that it benefits, it's the person that we're putting that boundary in place for, because they have to learn new tools, new ways of doing things that they might be relying on you to solve for them. And so these are my results, and these aren't even touching on the results that my customers have been getting through working with me. A lot of my customers have had very, very similar results, better results. Like, I had one customer who came to me in our first session, told me she was getting a divorce, and by session 6 she said that her and her husband were happier than ever. And not at one point during those 6 sessions did we actually ever focus on their relationship specifically. We focused on her, and other customers who, just having the most fantastic results. One of my customers at the moment is she's actually in London, and she sent me a message the other day saying that ordinarily this would have sent her into a complete and utter spiral, being in London away from her house and stuff for a week, doing her stuff she needs to do in business. And she said that she's actually getting through her day and still feeling good every day because she's so much more regulated. So I'd like you just to close your eyes just for a moment and just take a breath. And I'd like you just to imagine what it would be like to be the version of you who no longer needs validation from anyone or anything outside of you. So not a partner, not a sale in your business, not a like on Facebook. What would that feel like, to feel that sense of security within? Don't worry too much if you can't feel it at the moment. We're going to be going a bit deeper in this. And just imagine what life would be like if you felt that sense of peace and calm. What would life be like in a few months' time? What might you be doing differently? How might you be showing up differently? And we're just going to leave that there just for a moment, coming back to the room when you're ready. Like I say, we'll be going deeper in this on the breath work. So today is about feeling secure. So in order to feel secure, we need self-awareness without self-blame. This is not about saying, I've done all of these things in my past and, I shouldn't be in this place that I'm in right now. We are looking at emotional regulation. So retraining and recalming your nervous system, core belief rewiring. So these are primarily our beliefs about ourselves. Okay. So I'd like you to imagine that your beliefs about yourself are like different pairs of glasses. Okay. So whenever we have a belief about ourselves, we put on our glasses, and that is then how we see the world. That is how we respond to other people. And so if you have a belief about yourself, which I will say that probably 99.9% of my customers, when they first start working with me, have some belief of not being good enough. And so with those glasses on, every single person you connect with, you will be filtering through the lens of not feeling good enough. But these could be any beliefs. So again, it could be a belief of not feeling safe, which could come from childhood. And we put those glasses on. And so our entire life is made up of our perception, which is why you can have two people who have completely opposite beliefs and opposite views, and they literally see life differently. And, we can see at the moment how, unfortunately, some of that is really negative, unfortunately, how people are seeing the world. We are going to be learning about reconnection to our self-worth, because actually you weren't born feeling not good enough. Okay. No baby is born feeling like, I don't deserve to be fed today. I don't deserve to be changed today. Like we are born with the belief that we are enough. And then over time that gets filtered out. In fact, there's a really, really lovely Hawaiian, I think it's like a poem or something, but they talk about how we are all born as balls of light, and then over time stones get put in and start to dim our light. All we need to do is start taking those stones back out. And we are going to be looking at embodied confidence, because like I say, years ago you could have met me and thought, God, she's so confident. Like I could walk into a room and be confident. I could walk down the street and be confident, but internally my internal voice was absolute shit show. So we can act confident. I'd put on a pair of heels and some lipstick, and I was like the life and soul of the party. But inside, what are they thinking about me? What are they saying about me? And this is where now I don't need the red lipstick, I don't need the heels, because actually my internal voice is like somebody that loves themselves. And this is the thing. Do you speak to yourself? I know it's cheesy. I'm sorry it's so cheesy, but do you speak to yourself the same way that you would speak to a best friend or a child? Because most people don't. Most people speak to themselves the way they would speak to somebody they really dislike or even hate. And so that internal voice needs to shift before anything else shifts. So old patterns that are still playing out are actually screwing with your relationships, your nervous system, your business, and mindset alone isn't enough to save you. So I love mindset work, like being able to change like the way that we think about things. Like I say, it definitely changes our perception to some degree. But when we change our core beliefs, which is rewiring our nervous system, which by the way is absolutely possible to rewire. I had a mental breakdown 13 years ago when my kids were very little. And at that point, I would have said that I was a very negative person. Okay. My brain constantly went to worst case scenario. I was constantly anxious, worrying about what people were thinking about me. I had several phobias. One of those phobias was knives, which working in a kitchen in a cafe was not fun. But I've actually rewired the way that I think, the way that I believe. So that is absolutely possible. And the way that I always describe this is a little bit like, I've just been for a walk this morning in Frenchay near me, and through the fields there are paths. Okay, so the grass has stopped growing in certain places where people have taken the same route again and again and again. Now, this is the way our neural pathways in our brain work. So actually, if you want to change certain things in your life, you need to start taking a new path. And what will happen is, if you take that new path again and again and again, the grass will stop growing on that path and it'll grow over on the old path. Okay, so this is just a very simplistic way of how our rewiring can take place. So what we believed sometimes when we were very, very young is to be helpful, to be nice, don't ask for too much, to get it right. And what we take from this is we are only worthy when we are performing. So this is why sometimes we overgive, we become people pleasers, all of those types of things. So this is just a little bit about the 4 nervous system kind of states that we go into. So actually, like I say, I used to be really, really oversensitive, but actually thinking back, it wasn't that I was oversensitive. I was going in between these states. And actually, when I say going in between these states, because I was very oversensitive, and then what I'd do is I'd meditate, and I'd meditate to feel better. You know, we hear it all the time everywhere. You need to meditate. And don't get me wrong, I love meditation. I think meditation is incredible. And I mean, Beth, you do the loveliest drawing with meditations, which is so good for our brain. It's so mindful. But actually, sometimes I was in a state of freeze, and I would think that meditation was going to help me. And I would meditate sometimes for hours, or I'd nap. And actually, what it did is it took me deeper into the freeze state. So I needed, when I started doing breath work, that was the game changer for me, because rather than going deeper into freeze, I needed to wake up. And, you know, meditation is really, really great for people that are in the other state sometimes. So it's just learning what state we're in and what's going to be most helpful. So I'm just going to go through these really quickly. So fight. So this is where we get defensive and we get pushy. So even with my kids, I used to be in fight mode. Like when they were really young, I'd be defensive. I'd be angry about the tiniest little thing. I used to suffer really badly with road rage. And I mean, anybody who's with me now would probably never believe that I used to suffer so badly with road rage, but I did. I remember following cars because I was like so angry about the fact that they'd cut me up and things. And of course, now logically, I know that that makes no sense. But at the time when we're in these states, it's very hard to think logically. So then there's flight. So avoiding intimacy or visibility. So again, I used to go into flight mode at times. So in relationships, this could look like just going quiet, like I'm going out for the day and not speaking to anyone, just avoiding basically. But yeah, it can look like physically needing to move. I know some of you know Becky, my business partner from Goldney, and actually we always joke because we are very different in terms of our nervous system responses. So I'm very much my natural dominant state would be probably more freeze, and hers is more flight. So at the end of doing something together, she's like, she wants to talk about it all and I want to go to sleep. So again, it's just really powerful knowing these states and what they look like and how we move through them. Freeze, like I say, it's shutting down, going blank, procrastinating. So again, when I started my breathwork journey, there were loads of things that I'd been procrastinating on for ages. And I started doing breathwork, and all of these things, I started just ticking them off the list. I started actually being excited about doing the things that I'd been putting off. Fawn is people pleasing, so over delivering, caring more about them and what they think than what you think or feel about yourself. So just, you know, having a little look at these and seeing which you think is your most dominant state. We all, and don't get me wrong, no matter how much work you do, you will to some degree still touch in and out of these states, because we are human. So this can show up in relationships by overgiving, hoping that you can earn love. So again, in my relationships previously, years ago, my very, very first date actually with the father of my boys, I drove, I paid for stuff, I bought him a bottle of the alcohol that he wanted, because I really felt like I needed to prove myself. And like I say, I'm talking about romantic relationships here, but this could be friendships, it could be even with children. Yes, of course we want to spoil our children and show them love and stuff, but actually when you feel like they will love me more if, and that's not probably a conscious belief, it's unconscious. So just starting to look at these things. In relationships, you can attract emotionally unavailable people and then exhaust yourself trying to prove that you're worthy to stay for. So this was one of my patterns, even if they were no longer interested, what can I do? I mean, I could tell you some cringe-worthy stories of things that I've done in the past. I remember one of my exes, I felt him start to pull away, and so my natural reaction was to go in even harder. And I turned up at his house with a whole like hamper full of snacks and drinks and all these things, because like I say, at the time I was like, well, if I show him how amazing I can make his life, he'll want to be with me. And we don't need to do these things. Like, people either like us or they don't. We need to stop caring so much about what we can do to make them stay. So you might feel anxious when somebody is actually safe to be around, because you're waiting for something to go wrong, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You don't trust calm love, it feels boring. So this is something else. When we are used to toxic, unhealthy relationships, let's say, which usually comes from childhood, then actually in adult relationships, you can feel bored. You can feel bored with somebody who's safe, caring, good for you, until you calm your nervous system and understand that actually that is safety and security. And you might mistake intensity for intimacy. So we want really, really intense relationships, and that's often, it's not our type, it's trauma. So in business or career, you might undercharge because you're scared of being too much, too expensive. You might panic post, like just desperately trying to get people on board. You might say yes to projects that drain you because, well, what if this is all there is? You work from the place of, oh God, I hope they like me, instead of knowing your worth and know, if they don't, all of you on this masterclass, you might love it, you might hate it. I can't control that, and I'm not going to try and make you feel a certain way. You feel what you feel. You burn out trying to prove your value instead of letting your work speak for itself. So like I said, this is my mission. Okay, my mission is to help women to feel secure in relationships, secure in business, secure in life. And that's my mission. So it doesn't feel like hard work, because I'm not trying to prove my value. I'm just doing something that I feel is something that people need and that I absolutely love to do. So this is general life. So you might avoid slowing down because you then hear that inner critic. So I've worked with a lot of people actually who they can't sit down, they can't be quiet, they can't be still. They have to go and they clean their entire house. They have to be with people constantly. And that's often a sign that they just want to quiet that inner voice. That's where actually Beth's drawings would be so perfect, to just quiet that inner voice. You might struggle to make decisions without second guessing yourself. So again, people outsource, they ask people that aren't qualified to ask, should I do this? Like, even if we think about, like, in business, I might used to have said to people that have got no idea about business, oh, I don't know whether I should do this or not. Well, why am I asking people that don't run a business or aren't qualified to answer the questions that I'm asking them? So when we're feeling this way, we might doubt our own decisions. We don't trust that inner kind of wisdom that we have. You might overcommit your time, your energy, your attention because your default mode is prove, please, perform. You might rarely celebrate your wins because you're already on to the next thing that proves that you're enough. So you don't see, and again, this is something that when I work with my customers, I sometimes remind them, look at where you were. Look at where you were like 5 months ago or a year ago or whatever, because actually we forget how far we've come. You might find it easier to cheer for others than to truly back yourself. You might say yes to plans because you're scared of disappointing someone else. And you try and keep the peace at all costs, even if it means betraying your own needs. And I always say to people pleasing is pleasing no one, because if you're doing yourself a disservice by saying yes to somebody else, you're still not pleasing you. So people pleasing is pleasing no one. And also, do we want other people to say yes to us just because they feel obliged, or because they actually really want to meet us or do whatever it is that we've asked them to do? You might stay connected to people out of loyalty, not out of alignment. So again, this showed up mainly in my relationships, where I'd feel like I constantly needed to check in with them and make sure they were okay. And even if they weren't putting in the effort the other side. And actually, sometimes you just need to be, okay, it is what it is, and step back and let whatever's going to happen. You might rarely ask for others because you fear being a burden. And again, this was a big one for me. Again, in relationships, men that they wanted to help me, they wanted to do things for me. I didn't feel worthy of accepting it. So that was really, really hard. I felt like a burden. I felt like I was asking for too much, when actually it was things that they wanted to do. So what does the secure woman feel in opposed to all of those things? Well, she feels grounded, not reactive. If you've got a business, she leads her business with boundaries and magnetism rather than trying to show how worthy she is. She's content alone, but when dating, might feel like she's a prize without the chasing. And in life, her self-worth isn't up for negotiation, nor does she need validation to feel good. The secure woman doesn't beg, bargain, or bend. She chooses. She doesn't need constant reassurance because her power doesn't wobble when life does. This is a big one. The external stuff that happens. And I talk about this a lot. There's a book called The Choice by, I think it's Edith Edgar, I want to say. And Edith was actually in the concentration camps during the war. Now, her story, it's hard to read, but it is incredible because she talks about how even while she was in those concentration camps, when life around her was a complete and utter shit show, like nothing like we could imagine here. And this is not comparing because, trauma doesn't kind of care about what that trauma means. It is just something that we store. But she was able to keep control of what was going on within her own mind. And she actually says, one of her quotes in the book is, the only thing they couldn't take away from me was what was going on in my own mind, because they stripped her of everything. But she was able to keep that kind of inner power. And I always say to people about, like, I always relate it to like a wilting flower. Like if our nervous system isn't regulated, if we're feeling like our subconscious is working against us rather than for us, all of life stuff like literally has us flying around everywhere. Whereas when we're feeling really grounded, our nervous system is strong and our subconscious is working for us rather than against us, it doesn't matter what's trying to push us over from the outside. Our inner world feels safe and secure. So yeah, business, not chasing clients, she's in demand. So all of these things that when we are feeling more secure are just so much easier. Life is easier. Like I say, even the phobias that I used to have, I no longer have. So this is, if we look at things very much in a general term, let's call it anxiety, stress, overwhelm. They just aren't there as much. So we've already glimpsed that version of her earlier when we did just that little, closing our eyes and thinking about how we would feel if we were um, feeling that sense of security or unshakably loved. And we are going to go a little bit deeper into this now. So we're going to do some anchoring and we're going to get into the breath work. So let's just do the anchoring for a moment. So I'd like you again to just close your eyes. Well, before you close your eyes, actually, when we are doing anchoring, some of you may have experienced, if you've ever worked with anyone who's done NLP or anything before, you might have experienced anchoring. So if you already have an anchor, and anchoring usually looks like pinching an earlobe, you can pinch your finger and your thumb together, you can pinch somewhere on your body, whatever feels good to you. But if you've already got one, so say you've already anchored in a feeling before somewhere, anchor it somewhere else, so your other earlobe or your finger and your thumb together. But that's what we're going to be doing today. So again, just closing your eyes. Taking a nice big deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And I'd like you to just remember a time when you felt confident, truly confident. And when you have that time that you felt truly confident, just go back to that time now. And I'd like you just to fully step into your body, fully stepping into your body now, seeing what you can see through your eyes, hearing what you can hear through your ears, and really feel that feeling of being so fucking confident. And when that feeling is at its absolute strongest, I'd like you just to anchor it in. Just feeling that feeling of being so fucking confident. Anchor it in wherever you're going to anchor it now, whether it's pinching your earlobe, pinching your finger and your thumb together, really anchor in that feeling of being so confident. What does that confidence feel like? What does that confidence allow you to do or achieve? How does that confidence make you feel? Whenever you're ready, whenever it begins to fade away, just release it and come back to the room. And we're going to do it again. So just closing your eyes again. And if you can, I'd like you to think of another time when you felt truly confident. Or if you can't think of another time, use that first time when you felt truly confident. And even if you struggle to find a time when you felt truly confident, just imagine what it would feel like now. Go back to that time, float right down into your body, see what you can see through your eyes, hear what you can hear through your ears, and really feel that feeling of being so fucking confident. Really, really confident now, really feeling into it. And when it's at its strongest, just anchor it in again. And when you're ready, come back to the room. And we're just going to do one more time now. So closing your eyes whenever you're ready. And I'd like you to find one more time, if you can, when you felt truly confident. If you can't find a time, just imagine one or use one of the others, just feeling really, really confident. And when you're ready, float right down into your body. See what you can see through your eyes, hear what you can hear through your ears. Really feel that feeling in your body of being so fucking confident. Just notice even how your posture changes when you are feeling so confident, so fucking confident. And just notice what life looks like when you are feeling so confident. How do you walk into a room when you're feeling so truly confident, when it comes from inside? And anchor that in when it's at its feeling, it's at its strongest. Just really anchoring it in now. Whenever you're ready, just take a nice deep breath, come back into the room. And you might like to just shake that feeling out. And that's something that you can practice again and again and again. And it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And the reason that I got you to practice this is because when it comes to things like love, which if anybody is interested in doing the full course of Secure with me, we are going to be anchoring in lots of other stuff. And one of the things that we will be anchoring in is the feeling of love. Okay. So we all think, well, a lot of people think that love comes from external things. Now, to some degree, it does. There's a chemical makeup, for example, oxytocin, when it comes to, with babies and things, we know that there's oxytocin being produced. But actually, it's still us producing that feeling. So I can't be like, here, have some love. I can't hand it to you in a glass or on a plate because it's within you. So we can start learning to embody that feeling of love. ourselves. We can embody the feeling of safety, the feeling of security, the feeling of confidence, the feeling of being able to have whatever the fuck it is that we want in life. We can learn how to anchor these states in. And the more that we practice them, the more that they become our dominant thoughts. So I talked to you earlier about when I had my mental breakdown and I was actually feeling really depressed. When I look back now, my dominant state was negativity. So I was constantly thinking worst case scenario. And that then those consistent things become our way of thinking, our thoughts, and they then become naturally who we are. Well, we can practice being someone different, being somebody who feels and thinks in a different way by anchoring it in and embodying it. So that's one of the things that I will be really teaching in that course. So just quickly, I know you've all signed your waivers, but breathwork, there are certain contraindications that it's not suitable for. So you've all signed the paperwork in order to be here. It's only for over 18. So if I send out the recording and you wanted to share it with anyone, you cannot share it with under 18s. And by attending this session, you understand and acknowledge that you are responsible for your own well-being and agree that you are adequately prepared to participate. Breakthrough breathwork can result in intense physical and emotional releases. So this is why definitely do not ever do this when you are in or near water, and make sure that you have somewhere to lie or sit down. So just, I'm going to really quickly run over this. I'm sorry, ladies, I know you've already signed your forms, but just in case I send it out as a recording, which I haven't decided yet, it's not suitable for people with cardiovascular disease, including angina, heart attacks, high blood pressure, pacemakers, glaucoma, retinal detachment, osteoporosis, or significant recent physical injuries or surgery. It's not advised for people with significant mental illness or seizure disorders, or for anyone with a family history of aneurysms or pregnant women. Now, what I will say is that all of these contraindications that I've just mentioned, apart from retinal detachment, glaucoma, and pregnancy, breathwork has also been proven to help support with. So I do always say to people, this is choice. The person who taught me my breathwork actually has epilepsy and has found breathwork extremely helpful. But I would definitely advise you to consult a medical professional if you do suffer from any of these things, because your safety is top priority. So just some things that you may experience when we get into the breathwork. You may experience tingling, buzzing, vibrating, trembling in your body. You may experience something called tetany. I sometimes call this T-Rex hands. It's nothing to be worried about or scared of. I actually really enjoy the feeling of tetany. As weird as that sounds, when I get it in my jaw, it feels like somebody just gently cupping my face. So it's just a very slight cramping. Beth, you look very concerned. So yeah, it's just a very slight cramping. It's just we create a slight imbalance of the chemicals in our body, which helps to release trauma and emotions. But that does also sometimes mean like a slight cramping. And that will all return back to normal as soon as we get into the normal breath. If it becomes really, really uncomfortable, just go back to your normal breath for a few moments and it'll return. You may experience deep emotional release and catharsis. So this is where you may cry. You may feel like you want to scream. You may get feelings of almost anger or rage. Now, this is a safe space. So feel free to release those emotions during the breath work. If you want to punch the air, if you want to scream into a pillow, if you want to cry, just, try not to repress them during the session. And these are things that sometimes, even when I'm feeling really good and I do a breathwork session, I'm really surprised at how often I still end up crying. Stuff that I must have, repressed without even knowing that I've repressed it. So it may unlock repressed sensual energy. So sometimes people can feel quite sensual whilst doing breath work. And it can also bring up feelings of ecstatic, I can never say that word, but joy. Ecstatic, is that how we say it? Ecstatic, that's it. Sorry. And just after the breath work, I want you to really listen to your body. So whether you want to rest or you want to move, Please do drink plenty of water, keep yourself well hydrated, and be kind to yourself. If you're feeling slightly more emotions for the rest of the day, again, that might be something that you find, but you will probably also find that you sleep really, really well tonight. So just be aware of all of those things. And right, so before we get started in the breath work, I'm actually going to be asking you some questions. So feel free to either take yourself off of mute or to pop these in the chat. But when you are feeling that sense of self-doubt and you're not feeling in the place that you want to feel, how does that affect your life? So these are what, let's class them as maybe slightly more negative, although we don't necessarily need to label emotions as negative, but how are they affecting you in your life? How are they holding you back, keeping you stuck? So these may be things like not charging your worth. I'm just going to stop share. How do I see chat at the same time? There we go. Yeah, so if you can just pop in the chat, how does this affect you? Saying yes to everything and overcommitting. Yeah. And I'll just go one step deeper, Beth. How does that affect you? How does it make you feel? So this is really, ladies, where I need you to get involved, because the more we put down, the more you're going to get out of it. Overwhelmed and out of control. Brilliant. Thank you. Not feeling present, especially for my children. Amazing. Yeah. Anxious. Yeah, absolutely. What else? What beliefs might you have? Stuck, feeling stuck. Not celebrating success. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So constantly feeling like the next thing. Who am I to charge prices when yeah, absolutely. So just to make it a little bit broader, Beth, I guess like imposter syndrome type feeling, yeah. By the way, you are absolutely qualified to charge what you're worth, because you're amazing at what you do. Not feeling good enough, always moving on to the next thing to prove myself. Yeah. Not speaking up when seeing things can be done differently. Absolutely. Yeah. Something stopping me can be seen as arrogant. Yeah, absolutely. Feeling arrogant rather than worthy. This is what I said. I used to feel not enough and too much all at the same time. Like, make that make sense. So not confident. So let's put fearful as a bigger one. Okay, smallest things can feel too much. Yeah. So what about procrastination? Would that be right? Anything else to go on this list before we turn on to the next one? Feeling anxious about feeling anxious. Oh my God. I used to I won't talk about what therapy it was because I don't want to put any other therapies down, but I did a different therapy before I became certified, or like before I tried hypnotherapy for myself. And I started having panic attacks about the fact that next week I might have a panic attack. Like, because all we talked about was the panic attacks. And I'm like, but hypnotherapy helped massively with that. So, yeah. So, how does that anxiety, what does that do to your life? Like, where is that keeping you stuck? What's it stopping you from? I'll wait and see if any more pop up on this, and then we're going to turn to stops me from being me. Yeah. Right. Fantastic. Okay, so now if you felt unshakably loved, so like secure and great in yourself, how does this affect you? How does this make you feel? What beliefs might you have? So that anxiety, Mandy, you're saying is constantly there, even when you, yeah. So I guess it's like that feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop. This will go on the like negative list. So waiting for things to go wrong, I guess. Okay, so when we switch that around, we wave that magic wand. We're feeling unshakably loved. We're feeling amazing, strong and tethered. Feel like I've got glow. Love that. Glowing. Can take on the world. Hell yeah. Isn't that a great feeling when you feel like you can take on the world? Anything is possible. Absolutely. More connected rather than separate. Yeah. And that's something that a lot of people get when they do the breath work. There's like suddenly a feeling of being connected to more. Great. Looking back at the amazing things I've done in the past. Yeah. How does that make you feel, Mandy, when you're looking back at all the amazing things you've done in the past? Seeing good in the small things. Great. Proud. Yeah. Wondering where that person. So you'd be feeling proud. Yeah. Experiencing life rather than bracing. Yeah. Let's put bracing on the other sheet. And what about Emma? I know, what was it you said that I wrote down? Constantly on to the next thing. So, how would you feel if you were suddenly feeling like unshakably loved, secure, all of the great things? Calm, yeah. How might that affect your business? And what about you, Beth? You said that you don't feel kind of worthy enough to charge. So what would you be doing if you were suddenly feeling much more secure, unshakably loved, like you don't have to prove yourself? More to life, yeah. What about some of those lovely things that you may experience, like joy? Would joy be something? Confidence, yeah. Presence. Okay. Pop anything else that needs to go in here quickly before we get started? Self-belief, inner peace, lush. Right. Okay. Anything else for anything else before we get started? So I'm just going to put a little warning out that I do swear. So I probably will be swearing during the breath work. So just for this, get yourself nice and comfortable. If you can lie down. Now, what we're going to be doing is the first few breaths, we're going to be grounding. So this is nice, slow, steady, calm breaths. And then we are going to be getting into conscious connected breath. And I will just show you what this looks like quickly. So conscious connected breath looks like breathing into your stomach, into your chest and out. So now go at your pace. But what I would say is you are better to go deeper and slower than faster and shallower. You will get into a rhythm once you get going and your breath will take over. So to begin with, you may feel like it's hard. Your brain may be telling you you're too thirsty, all of the things it might be telling you, but just ask yourself why it's trying to protect you. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my music a moment. Okay, why can't I hear that? Come on, music, do your thing. Wondering if I'm still showing anything else that's stopping me. Into audio. Sorry, ladies, this is the technical fun. I'm going to try a different track and see if any of you. I'm not sure why that's not playing. Right, I'm wondering whether. Sorry, guys, technical stuff is technicaling. And I had it playing earlier, didn't I? So it's making no sense. Let's try one more time. I can't even work out why it's not playing for me. Right, I'm just going to hit